Luke Coffey is a former special advisor to the UK Ministry of Defence. He joins us now live from Washington, D.C. Luke, good to have you on the programme. NATO, of course, has called a meeting, been discussing the situation in the Kerch Strait. It has expressed its deep concern, but what concrete action can it or will it take?
Thanks for having me on. The situation in Ukraine is vital for NATO security, even though Ukraine is not a member of NATO. Ukraine is an important actor on the Black Sea, and NATO has a lot of interests, security interests, in the Black Sea region. And while there's no call for NATO to send ground troops into Ukraine to help the Ukrainians, there's still a lot that the alliance can do. The alliance can help continue to train the Ukrainian military, provide weapons to the Ukrainian military, share intelligence information with the Ukrainian authorities, all to help the Ukrainians better help themselves, to help them prepare to defend against further Russian aggression, so that Russia knows that there will be a very high cost to increasing tensions in the region.
Well, to be fair, that's what NATO says it's been doing since Crimea was annexed. NATO says it's provided political support to Ukraine, it's helped modernize its armed forces. None of that seems to have stopped Russia increasing its interference with Ukraine.
Well, it's because NATO hasn't really been as serious about this as they can be or should be. Russia knows very well about the internal divisions inside NATO over Ukraine. For example, there's a bilateral dispute between NATO member Hungary and Ukraine over the teaching of Hungarian to the very small ethnic Hungarian minority in Western Ukraine that has blocked a lot of NATO-Ukrainian cooperation. Russia knows that when it comes to economic sanctions, which is actually an issue outside of NATO, more with the European Union, but nevertheless, they know that there's divisions inside Europe about this as well. And while NATO has done symbolic gestures like providing funding for counter IED capabilities and providing funding for example, career management programs for the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, they haven't really provided funding for things that really can impact the battlefield here and now today, such as better defensive military capabilities, better maritime domain awareness capabilities, radars, for example. There's a lot more that NATO can and should do. Now, I will say on an individual basis, some of the NATO members are doing more individually than the alliance as a whole, but there's plenty of scope to increase cooperation.
Can I ask you this? A lot of analysts are saying that after Putin successfully annexed Crimea back in 2014, Russia became emboldened by that. And the West has found it increasingly difficult to cope with Russian aggression since then, despite the sanctions that you've mentioned. Do you agree with that? What do you make of that position?
Well, for sure. I think that Vladimir Putin, his #1 priority every day is regime preservation. He wants to maintain his grip. He wants to maintain his power. And every time his popularity goes down, you see a stunt like invading Georgia or annexing Crimea. And just recently, as we saw over the weekend, it was the capture of these 3 Ukrainian naval vessels and all of their sailors. And we shouldn't forget that 6 of these sailors were actually wounded. They were shot and wounded by Russian security forces. And this comes at a time when Vladimir Putin's popularity is very low because of some of his pension reform proposals inside Russia. So it doesn't surprise me, really, the timing of this at all. And I think this is part of Vladimir Putin's modus operandi.
Luke, good to have you with us. Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts there. Luke Coffey there in Washington, D.C.